The words hit me like ice water. Try not to embarrass me. These people are way above your level. Nathan's breath was hot against my ear as we stood outside the towering iron gates of the park estate. Beyond them, a massive stone mansion glowed with golden light from every window. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Women in designer gowns and men in tailored suits moved like graceful shadows through the garden paths leading to the main entrance. I stood there in my simple blue dress, the one I'd bought on sale 3 months ago, and felt my husband's words settle into my chest like stones. He didn't look at me as he spoke. His eyes were fixed on the mansion, on the life he wanted so desperately to be part of, on the people he thought could give him everything he craved. This was Nathan. This was my husband of 7 years. The man who once told me I was beautiful. The man who now looked at me like I was something he'd stepped in on his way to somewhere better. Did you hear me? He glanced at me finally, his jaw tight. Just smile and nod. Don't talk too much about your little drawings or whatever. Nobody cares about that here. My little drawings. That's what he called my work. That's what he'd always called it, even when I stayed up until 3 in the morning finishing illustrations, even when my hands cramped from holding pencils for hours, even when I tried to show him something I was proud of. I didn't answer him. I couldn't trust my voice not to shake. Instead, I just nodded once and waited as he pressed the intercom button. A smooth voice answered, and the gates began to swing open. We walked up the stone path together, but we weren't together at all. Nathan walked slightly ahead of me, his shoulders back, his expensive suit jacket perfectly fitted. He'd spent $200 on a haircut yesterday. He'd bought new Italian leather shoes. He'd prepared for this dinner party for 2 weeks like it was the most important night of his life. He told me about it 3 days ago. There's a dinner at Theodore Park's estate on Saturday, he'd said, not looking up from his phone. You need to come. Wives are expected. That's all I was to him now. An expectation. A box to check. A requirement to fulfill so he could advance his career, his status, his desperate climb up a ladder that would never be tall enough. We reached the front door and it opened before Nathan could knock. A woman in her early 40s stood there, elegant in a green silk dress that probably cost more than my car. Her smile was genuine and warm. Welcome, she said. You must be Nathan and Brielle Hayes. I'm Simone Park. We're so glad you could make it. She knew my name. She'd said it with the same warmth as Nathan's. That was surprising. Nathan usually introduced me as my wife, when he bothered to introduce me at all. Thank you for having us, Nathan said, turning on his professional charm like a light switch. Your home is stunning. Thank you. Simone stepped back to let us in. Theodore is in the main hall with the other guests. He's been looking forward to meeting you both all week. Well, especially Brielle. I felt Nathan's body go rigid beside me. His smile stayed fixed on his face, but I knew him well enough to see the confusion in his eyes. Especially Brielle? He repeated, trying to sound casual. Of course. Simone looked at me with something like admiration. Theodore is one of your biggest fans. He's been trying to reach you through your agent for months. The floor felt unsteady beneath my feet. Nathan's head turned toward me slowly, mechanically, like something was breaking in his neck. Her agent? He said. But Simone was already leading us down a hallway with marble floors and artwork on every wall. Original paintings, sculptures on pedestals, pottery in lit glass cases. This wasn't just wealth. This was taste, education, a lifetime of appreciating beautiful things. We emerged into a massive hall with soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens lit by subtle landscape lighting. About 30 people stood in small groups, holding wine glasses, talking in that easy way people do when they're comfortable with money and status. A tall man with silver-streaked dark hair broke away from a conversation and walked straight toward us. His face lit up with genuine pleasure. Brielle Hayes, he said, extending his hand to me first, not to Nathan. Theodore Park. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to finally meet you in person. I shook his hand, aware of every eye in the room turning toward us. Aware of Nathan standing beside me, completely frozen. It's wonderful to meet you too, I managed to say. Your work is extraordinary, Theodore continued. My granddaughter has every single one of your books. She's 6 and she's already trying to draw like you. The way you capture emotion in your characters' faces, the detail in every background. It's museum-quality work, truly. Several people nearby moved closer, smiling at me. A woman in a maroon dress nodded enthusiastically. I have your books too, she said. My son is 8 and he's read them at least 50 times each. The new one comes out next month, doesn't it? Another guest asked. My daughter has it pre-ordered already. I felt like I was floating somewhere above my body, watching this scene happen to someone else. These people knew my work. They valued it. They were excited to meet me. And Nathan had no idea what they were talking about. His face had gone pale. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His eyes moved between me and Theodore and the gathering crowd like he was watching a play performed in a language he didn't understand. "I'm sorry," Nathan said finally, his voice tight. "I think there's been some mistake. My wife draws a little bit, but she's not published or anything." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Theodore's expression shifted from confusion to something else. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. "Nathan," I said quietly, "we should talk later." But he wasn't listening. He was staring at Theodore, then at me, then at all the people watching us. "Someone explain what's happening," Nathan said. His professional mask was cracking. The desperation underneath was starting to show. "Your wife is B.H. Sterling," Theodore said gently. "One of the most successful children's book illustrators working today. She sold over 2 million copies in the past 3 years. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Publishers Weekly, and School Library Journal. She won the Caldecott honor last year." I watched Nathan's face as each piece of information landed. Sold over 2 million copies. 3 years. Award winner. Featured in major publications. 3 years of success he knew nothing about. 3 years of me building a career while he told me my drawings didn't matter. 3 years of me becoming someone he never bothered to see. "B.H. Sterling," he repeated numbly. "That's you?" "My maiden name was Brooks," I said. "Brielle Hayes Sterling. I use my middle name and maiden name for my work." "But I thought..." He trailed off. He thought I was nobody. He thought I spent my days doing nothing while he worked. He thought I was lucky to be married to him. A younger man joined our group, holding a wine glass and wearing an interested expression. "I'm actually here to talk to Brielle too," he said. "Grant Morrison from Sterling Publishing House." "Different Sterling, funny coincidence. We've been communicating through your agent about the animated series adaptation." "Animated series?" Nathan repeated. His voice sounded hollow. "The contract is nearly finalized," Grant continued, looking at me. "We're projecting the series could be as big as some of the major animated properties. The advance alone is substantial." I could see Nathan doing math in his head. Trying to calculate what substantial meant. Trying to figure out how much money I'd been making while he handed me a small allowance each month from his paychecks. "Perhaps we should let you two catch up," Theodore said diplomatically. "Brielle, when you're ready, I'd love to show you my collection. I have several original illustrations from early 20th century children's books that I think you'd appreciate." The crowd dispersed slowly, giving us space but not privacy. We stood in the middle of that beautiful hall, surrounded by wealth and art and everything Nathan had always wanted, and he looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. "How long?" he asked. "How long what? How long have you been doing this?" 7 years, I said. "Since right after we got married. I've been illustrating professionally our entire marriage." "That's impossible." "I would have known. You never asked what I did all day. You never looked at my work. You told me it was a hobby, a waste of time. So I stopped telling you about it." His face flushed red. Anger was easier for him than confusion, than shame. "You lied to me." "I never lied. I just stopped sharing something you made very clear you didn't care about. This is my boss's dinner party, Brielle. These are the most important people in my industry. And you made me look like an idiot." "I didn't make you look like anything," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Simone appeared at my elbow with a glass of white wine. "Everything all right?" she asked, her voice kind. I took the wine and smiled at her. "Everything's fine. Thank you." Nathan was breathing hard through his nose, his hands clenched at his sides. But we were in public, at the party he'd wanted so desperately to attend, and he couldn't make a scene. "We'll talk about this at home," he said through his teeth. "Yes," I agreed. "We will." But I knew something he didn't. This conversation, when it came, would be nothing like what he expected. Because 7 years of building a secret life had taught me something important. I didn't need him. And I hadn't for a very long time. I just hadn't admitted it to myself until right now, standing in this mansion, watching him realize I was a person he'd never bothered to know. The rest of the evening passed in a strange blur. I talked to Theodore about art and technique. I discussed contract details with Grant. I met other guests who loved my work, who asked intelligent questions, who treated me like I mattered. And Nathan stood nearby, drinking too much wine, watching everything fall apart. When we finally left after midnight, he didn't say a word. We drove home in silence, his jaw clenched, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He thought this was the worst night of his life. He had no idea it was about to get so much worse. Sunday morning arrived with cold autumn sunlight cutting through our bedroom windows. I woke up before Nathan, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the clarity in my mind. For 7 years I'd moved through this house like a ghost. I'd made myself small, quiet, unimportant. I'd convinced myself that keeping peace was the same thing as being loved. That if I just didn't make waves, didn't demand attention, didn't insist on being seen, then everything would be fine. But nothing was fine. Nothing had been fine for a very long time. I got up and showered, then dressed in jeans and a red sweater. Red felt right today. Bold. Visible. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my tablet, checking emails from my agent. There were 17 new messages. 3 from galleries wanting to feature my original artwork. 2 from magazines requesting interviews. 1 from a television producer interested in meeting about future projects. The rest were forwarded fan mail from readers, parents thanking me for creating books their children loved. I read through them slowly, letting each one settle in. This was my life. This was what I'd built while Nathan was at work, climbing his corporate ladder, having his important meetings, making his connections. I heard him moving upstairs. The shower ran for a long time. When he finally came down, his hair was still damp, and he was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. Sunday was his day to be casual, to relax. Usually he spent it watching sports or playing golf with colleagues. Today he just stood in the kitchen doorway staring at me. "Coffee's fresh," I said, not looking up from my tablet. He poured himself a cup and sat down across from me. I could feel him trying to decide what to say, how to start this conversation. Finally, he just went straight to anger. That was always easier for him. "You made me look like a fool last night." I set down my tablet and met his eyes. "No, Nathan. You made yourself look like a fool. I just existed. You should have told me you were published. You should have told me people knew your work." "I did tell you. 7 years ago when I got my first book contract, I came home so excited I could barely breathe. I showed you the contract. You looked at it for maybe 10 seconds and said, 'That's nice, honey, but don't quit your day job.' Except I didn't have a day job. You told me you wanted me to stay home, to be available, to not worry about working." He flinched. The memory was there, I could see it crossing his face. But he pushed it away. "That was one time. You could have mentioned it again." "I did mention it. I mentioned it dozens of times. I showed you my first book when it arrived. You said it was cute. I showed you the second one. You were on your phone. By the third book I stopped trying. And by the time I won the Caldecott honor, you'd made it very clear that my work was just a little hobby that kept me busy while you did the real work of supporting us. That's not fair. Isn't it?" I picked up my phone and scrolled through my bank app. My separate bank account, the one I'd opened 5 years ago when I realized Nathan would never see my income as real money. I made $300,000 last year. This year I'll make closer to $500,000. The animation deal will add another $2 million over the next 3 years. His face went gray. "That's not possible." "It is possible. It's actual. It's real money in a real account that pays for real things." "Why do you have a separate account?" "Because you gave me an allowance, Nathan. You deposited $1,500 into our joint account every month and told me that was plenty for groceries and household things. You paid the mortgage and utilities directly from your account. You kept everything else separate. So I did the same." He stood up suddenly, knocking his chair back. "I can't believe this. My own wife lying to me for years." "I never lied. You never asked. There's a difference. How am I supposed to ask about something I don't know exists? How about, 'Brielle, what did you do today?' Or, 'What are you working on?' Or, 'Tell me about your week.' You know, the questions people who care about each other ask." He paced across the kitchen, running his hands through his damp hair. "This is insane. Everyone at that party knew about your little books except me. They're not little books. They're award-winning children's literature that sells hundreds of thousands of copies. And yes, people who actually pay attention to the world beyond your corporate office know about them." He spun to face me. "Theodore Park is connected to my company's biggest investor. Do you know how bad it looks that I didn't even know my own wife was famous? Is that what you're worried about? How it looks? Of course that's what I'm worried about. My credibility is everything in my field." I stood up too, suddenly exhausted by this conversation. "Your credibility, your field, your career. It's always about you, isn't it? I'm the one who pays for this house. Actually, I could buy this house outright with my savings. But that's not the point. The point is you never saw me as a person. Just as an accessory. That's ridiculous. Is it? When's my birthday, Nathan? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I know your birthday. When is it? It's in the spring. April 27th. 6 months ago. You forgot it completely. I spent the day alone working on illustrations, and you came home at midnight and never mentioned it. I was busy with the Henderson account. You're always busy with something. Some account, some deal, some meeting. And I've spent 7 years making myself smaller and smaller so I wouldn't be in your way. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it automatically and I saw his face change. Something flickered there. Guilt maybe. Or fear. Who's texting you? I asked. Nobody. Just work stuff. But the way he grabbed the phone, the way he turned it face down, told me it wasn't work. Let me see your phone. What? No. That's private. We're married. What do you have to hide? Nothing. I just don't like you making demands. I watched him, this man I'd lived with for 7 years, and suddenly saw him clearly. The way he couldn't meet my eyes. The defensive set of his shoulders. The phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. You're having an affair. It wasn't a question. The certainty of it hit me like falling through ice, shocking and complete. Don't be paranoid, he said, but his voice was wrong. Too high, too quick. Show me your phone. No. Then I already know the answer. He stood there, trapped between denying and confessing, and chose the path of least resistance. Maybe if you'd been more available, more interested in me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. The words should have hurt. They should have cut deep, made me question myself, made me wonder what I'd done wrong. But instead I felt something else. Relief. How long? I asked. It doesn't matter. How long, Nathan? 6 months. Maybe 7. 7 months. Half the time since my forgotten birthday. While I was illustrating children's books about kindness and friendship and believing in yourself, my husband was sleeping with someone else. Who is she? Nobody you know. Who is she? He sighed like I was being difficult, like I was the problem here. Her name is Camille. She works in marketing at my company. Does she know you're married? Of course she knows. And she doesn't care? She understands me in ways you don't. I almost laughed. The cliché of it, the absolute predictability. The other woman who understands him. The wife who doesn't. Get out, I said. What? Get out of this house. Pack a bag and leave. This is my house. No. This is the house we bought together. The house where I've lived while building a career you knew nothing about. The house where I stayed faithful while you betrayed me. And I want you out of it right now. You can't kick me out. Watch me. And if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll make this very public very quickly. I wonder how Theodore Park would feel knowing one of his potential business partners treats his wife this way. His face went red then white. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other across the kitchen, and I saw the moment he realized I meant it. Something had changed. The woman who made herself small, who stayed quiet, who never made waves, was gone. Fine, he said. I'll pack a bag. But this conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. He went upstairs. I heard drawers opening and closing, the sound of him moving around our bedroom. Our bedroom, where I'd slept next to a stranger for months while he carried on with someone else. I picked up my phone and texted Tasha, my best friend from college. We'd stayed close even though our lives had gone in different directions. She was a divorce attorney now, successful and fierce. Need to talk. Can you meet today? She responded within seconds. Absolutely. Coffee place on 5th at noon? Perfect. Nathan came back down with a duffel bag. He stood in the doorway looking like he wanted to say something else, but there was nothing left to say. This is a mistake, he finally said. You're overreacting. I don't think I'm reacting enough. He left. I heard his car start, listened to it pull out of the driveway. Then I sat in the silent kitchen and waited to feel something. Sadness maybe. Loss. Grief for the marriage that was ending. But all I felt was tired. So tired of pretending, of hiding, of being less than I was so someone else could feel bigger. I looked at my tablet, at the emails waiting for responses, at the work I loved that I'd kept secret for so long. Not anymore. At 11:30 I grabbed my coat and keys. I had just enough time to drive across town to meet Tasha. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Mrs. Chen from next door watering her garden. She waved. I waved back. Everything looked normal. The street, the houses, the autumn trees dropping yellow leaves. Everything looked exactly the same as it had yesterday. But everything had changed. And I was about to change it even more. The coffee shop on 5th Street was busy with Sunday brunch crowds. Tasha had already secured a corner table by the time I arrived. She stood up when she saw me and I walked straight into her hug. "Tell me everything," she said as we sat down. So I did. All of it. The dinner party, Nathan's humiliation, the morning confrontation, the affair. She listened without interrupting, her dark eyes sharp with attention. 7 months, she said when I finished. What a piece of work. I think I should have seen it coming. Why would you? You trusted him. That's what marriage is supposed to be. A waiter brought coffee and pastries. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup and stared out the window at people walking by. Normal people, living normal lives, probably not having their marriages explode on a Sunday morning. "I need a divorce attorney," I said. "You have one." "Me." "Tasha, I can't ask you to." "You didn't ask. I'm offering. And before you argue, remember that I handle high-asset divorces for a living. This is literally my job." "High asset," I repeated. "That still sounds strange to me. You're worth several $1,000,000, Brielle. Between your book income, your savings, your future contracts, you're what we call a high net worth individual. Nathan is going to try to claim he deserves half." "Can he?" "Depends. New York is an equitable distribution state, not a community property state. That means assets don't automatically split 50-50. The judge considers lots of factors. How long you've been married, each person's income, who contributed what to the marriage." "I have records," I said. "All my contracts, all my income statements. Everything's been in my name only, under my professional name." "That's good. Very good. Did Nathan contribute to your career in any way? Support, encouragement, financial investment?" I almost laughed. "He told me to quit. Multiple times. He said I was wasting my time." "Even better. Any witnesses to that?" "You. I complained to you about it for years." "I'll write up a statement." "What about the affair? Do you have proof?" "Just his admission this morning. And text messages on his phone that I didn't see." Tasha pulled out her phone and started taking notes. "We need evidence. Photos, messages, anything concrete. Affairs don't usually affect property division in New York, but they can influence things if we can prove he spent marital assets on his mistress." "How would we prove that?" "Credit card statements, bank records. If he bought her gifts, took her on trips, paid for hotels. That's marital money being spent on an affair partner. I don't have access to his accounts." "You will. Once we file, we can subpoena financial records. But it would be better if we had something now, before he knows we're looking." I thought about Nathan's phone, the way he'd grabbed it, hidden it. "He's probably with her right now." "Probably. Where would they go?" "I don't know. He said she works at his company. Marketing department." "Camille what?" "He just said Camille. I don't know her last name." Tasha typed something into her phone. "What's Nathan's company?" "Sterling Corporation." I grimaced. Same name as my pen name. That irony just hit me. Small world. Okay, Sterling Corp has maybe 300 employees. How hard can it be to find a Camille in marketing? She spent a few minutes on her phone while I picked at a croissant. The coffee shop hummed with conversation around us. A couple at the next table was having an animated discussion about a movie. They looked happy. I wondered if they were really happy or just good at pretending. "Got her," Tasha said. "Camille Grant. 28, been with the company for 3 years. There are photos on the company website from some corporate event last month." She turned her phone to show me. A woman with straight dark hair and a professional smile, standing in a group photo with other marketing employees. Pretty, young, polished. "Do you recognize her?" Tasha asked. "No. I never went to company events. Nathan said they were boring and I wouldn't enjoy them. More likely he didn't want you there because of her." I studied the photo. This was the woman Nathan had chosen over me. This was who understood him better, apparently. She looked like every other young professional in every other corporate marketing department. There was nothing special about her, nothing that explained why my marriage had ended. But maybe that was the point. Maybe it was never about her being special. Maybe it was about Nathan wanting something new, something that made him feel important, something that admired him without knowing him well enough to see his flaws. "What do we do now?" I asked. "Now I draw up divorce papers. You'll need to decide what you want. The house, I assume." "Yes." "Any other shared assets? Cars, investments, property?" "We have 2 cars. His is newer and more expensive. I don't care about it. We have a joint savings account with maybe $20,000 in it. He has his own retirement account through work. I have my own accounts for everything else." This is actually cleaner than most divorces I handle. You've kept things separate, which is smart. What about possessions? Furniture, art, things like that. He can have whatever he wants. I just want my work, my art supplies, my original illustrations. We'll make sure that's protected. I'll file tomorrow morning. He'll be served with papers probably by Tuesday. That fast. That fast. And Brielle? I know this is hard. I know it feels like your life is falling apart. But from where I'm sitting, you're about to be free. Free. The word settled over me like sunlight. I'd been married for 7 years and I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt free. There's something else, I said. I want to see them together. Nathan and Camille. I need to know this is real, that I'm not overreacting. You're not overreacting. He admitted to the affair. I know. But I need to see it with my own eyes. Tasha considered this. Okay. Where do you think they are? He has an apartment downtown. A place he keeps for when he works late, or so he said. Now I'm guessing it's where he meets her. Do you know the address? I pulled out my phone and found it in my contacts. Nathan had given it to me years ago in case of emergency. I'd never used it. Let's go, Tasha said, standing up. Right now. Why not? You deserve to know the truth. We paid for our coffee and walked to Tasha's car. The drive downtown took 20 minutes. The apartment was in a modern building with a doorman and a lobby full of expensive furniture. He's on the 8th floor, I said. Apartment 8C. Let me do the talking, Tasha said as we approached the front desk. The doorman looked up with a professional smile. Can I help you? We're here to see Nathan Hayes in 8C. Is he expecting you? It's a surprise, Tasha said smoothly. We're his wife and sister. I almost laughed at the lie, but the doorman just nodded and waved us through to the elevators. On the 8th floor we found apartment C halfway down a quiet hallway. I stood in front of the door, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment I would see the truth. I knocked. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then I heard movement inside, footsteps approaching. The door opened. Camille stood there in one of Nathan's shirts, her hair messy, her face confused. Behind her, I could see Nathan's jacket on a chair, 2 wine glasses on the coffee table. Can I help you? She asked. I'm Brielle, I said. Nathan's wife. Her face went pale. She stepped back automatically, and I heard Nathan's voice from deeper in the apartment. Who is it, Cam? He appeared behind her, shirtless, and stopped dead when he saw me. Brielle, he said. What are you doing here? Confirming what I already knew, I said. I pulled out my phone and took a photo before either of them could react. Nathan at his apartment, shirtless, with Camille wearing his shirt. It was all the evidence we needed. This is my private space, Nathan said, trying to recover. You can't just show up here. Actually, she can, Tasha said from beside me. And now that we have what we came for, we'll leave. Expect divorce papers by Tuesday, Nathan. My client looks forward to moving on with her life. We turned and walked away. Behind us, I heard Nathan calling my name, but I didn't turn around. In the elevator, Tasha grinned at me. That felt good, didn't it? It really did. Send me that photo. That's Exhibit A in our case. I forwarded it to her, then looked at it again on my screen. Nathan and Camille, caught completely off guard, looking guilty and stupid and small. 7 years of marriage, ending in one photograph. As we drove back to my house, I felt something lifting off my shoulders. Weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Thank you, I said to Tasha. For what? For being here. For helping me do this. That's what friends are for. And Brielle? You're going to be okay. Better than okay. I believed her. Monday morning felt different. I woke up alone in my bed and it didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. The house was quiet. No Nathan getting ready for work, no sound of him on phone calls before 8 in the morning, no smell of the expensive coffee he ordered online and made in our complicated espresso machine. Just silence. Just space. Just me. I got up and made simple coffee in a simple coffee maker. I scrambled eggs. I sat at the kitchen table and looked out at the backyard where autumn leaves covered the grass in shades of red and gold. My phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. Papers will be filed at 10. Confirmation coming this afternoon. I texted back a thumbs up, then opened my email. More messages from my agent, from publishers, from gallery owners. The world I'd built while Nathan wasn't paying attention, continuing to grow. One email caught my attention. Subject line, interview request, Arts and Culture magazine. I opened it. Dear Miss Sterling, I'm writing to request an interview for our December issue. We're doing a feature on award-winning illustrators who are changing children's literature. Your work with emotional authenticity and diverse representation has been groundbreaking. Would you be available for a phone conversation this week? Best regards, Jennifer Wu, Senior Editor. I sat back in my chair. A feature interview in a major magazine. 3 months ago, I would have been too nervous to respond. I would have worried about Nathan's reaction, about seeming too ambitious, about taking up too much space. Today I wrote back immediately. Dear Jennifer, I would be honored. I'm available any afternoon this week. Looking forward to speaking with you. Sent. Just like that. No second guessing, no anxiety. Just yes. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered carefully. Hello. Brielle? This is Grant Morrison from Sterling Publishing House. We met at Theodore Park's dinner party. Of course. How are you? I'm well, thank you. Listen, I know that evening was somewhat awkward and I wanted to follow up personally about our discussion. Are you still interested in pursuing the animation deal? Very interested. Wonderful. Could you come to our office this week? I'd like to introduce you to our animation development team. I can come Wednesday. Would 10 o'clock work? Perfect. I'll send you the address. And Brielle? I just want to say your work is exceptional. We're very excited about this partnership. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee and let myself feel it. Pride. Excitement. Possibility. For 7 years I'd kept my success quiet, small, private. I'd celebrated book deals alone. I'd won an award and told no one but Tasha. I'd deposited checks and saved money and built a career in the shadows. Not anymore. I spent the morning organizing my home office. I'd been using the smallest bedroom upstairs, keeping my art supplies in closets, working at a tiny desk. Now I looked at it with new eyes. This was my house. My space. Why was I cramming myself into the smallest room? The master bedroom had a sitting area we never used. Nathan watched TV downstairs and I read in bed. The sitting area just collected his gym equipment and boxes of things he meant to deal with someday. I started moving things. His weights went to the garage. His boxes went to the garage. His collection of golf magazines, his old electronics, his filing cabinet full of work documents. All of it out. By noon, the sitting area was empty. By 2, I'd moved my desk, my art supplies, my reference books. By 4, I had a real studio space with afternoon light coming through windows that faced the garden. I stood in the middle of it and felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. My phone buzzed. Tasha. Papers filed. He'll be served tomorrow morning at work. At work. Process server will find him there. Public, professional, and he can't avoid it. I imagined Nathan in his office, surrounded by colleagues, being handed divorce papers. The humiliation would kill him. Good. Thank you, I texted back. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. That's the spirit. Dinner this week? Wednesday. Perfect. My treat. I put down my phone and looked around my new studio. I had an illustration due next week for the final book in my current series. The deadline I'd been worried about suddenly felt manageable. I sat at my desk and opened my tablet. The story was about a young girl learning to use her voice, speaking up after being quiet for too long. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. I worked for 3 hours straight, lost in the creative process. The illustrations came easily, confidently. Each page felt right. At 7, my stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I went downstairs and found the refrigerator still full of food from the week before. I made pasta with vegetables, simple and good. While I ate, I thought about the conversation I knew was coming. Nathan would call. He would be angry, defensive, probably try to blame me for everything. I needed to be ready. After dinner, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and wrote down everything I wanted to say. Everything I'd held back for years. All the hurt, the disappointment, the moments when he'd made me feel small. But also the truth. That I'd let him do it. That I'd made myself invisible because it was easier than fighting. That I'd chosen peace over authenticity, and it had cost me 7 years. I wrote until my hand cramped. Then I tore the pages out of the notebook and put them in a drawer. I didn't need to send them. I just needed to acknowledge them. At 9, Nathan called. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 9:30. Voicemail. At 10 he texted. We need to talk. I wrote back, my attorney will contact you. This is ridiculous. I'm your husband. Not for much longer. You're making a huge mistake. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and went upstairs to my new studio. I sat at my desk and looked at the illustrations I'd created today. Strong lines, clear emotion, honest storytelling. This was who I was when I wasn't making myself small. This was who I'd always been underneath. And tomorrow Nathan would get the divorce papers. Tomorrow, everything would be real and official and irreversible. I felt no regret. No second thoughts. Just relief, pure and simple. I slept better that night than I had in months. Wednesday morning arrived bright and cold. I dressed carefully for my meeting at Sterling Publishing House, choosing a green dress that made me feel professional and confident. I added a silver necklace, simple earrings. In the mirror, I looked like someone who belonged in publishing meetings, making decisions about contracts and creative direction. I looked like myself. The Sterling building was in Midtown, all glass and steel and modern architecture. The lobby had high ceilings and abstract art on the walls. A receptionist directed me to the 14th floor. Grant Morrison met me at the elevator, his smile genuine and welcoming. "Brielle, thank you so much for coming. The team is excited to meet you." He led me down a hallway to a conference room where 5 people sat around a large table. They all stood when I entered. "Everyone, this is Brielle Hayes Sterling, the creative genius behind our favorite children's book series," Grant said. "Brielle, this is our animation development team." They introduced themselves one by one. Production managers, creative directors, marketing executives. All of them professional, enthusiastic, treating me like I mattered. We spent 2 hours discussing the adaptation. They'd already created concept art based on my illustrations. They showed me storyboards, character designs, color palettes. They asked my opinion on everything. "We want to make sure we're staying true to your vision," the creative director said. "These are your characters, your stories. You have full approval rights." "Full approval?" I repeated. "It's in the contract. You can veto anything that doesn't feel right." I looked at the papers in front of me. The contract we'd been negotiating through my agent for months. I'd read it a dozen times, but seeing it here ready to sign made it real. "The advance is $2 million, Grant said. "Paid in 3 installments. First payment when you sign, second when production begins, third when the first season is complete. Plus royalties on all merchandise, streaming revenue, and future seasons. $2 million. Plus royalties." I thought about Nathan, who'd given me a $1,500 monthly allowance and acted like it was generous. "Where do I sign?" I asked. They brought in a notary. I signed my name on 6 different pages. Each signature felt like freedom. Afterward, Grant walked me back to the elevator. "I have to tell you," he said. "When we first approached your agent about this deal, she warned us you might be hesitant because of family obligations. She said you were married to someone who didn't support your work." "That's changing," I said. "I'm glad. Your talent deserves to be celebrated, not hidden." On the street, I stood for a moment in the cold air and let myself feel it. Really feel it. I just signed a multi-million-dollar deal. I just agreed to see my characters animated, brought to life, shared with children around the world. And I'd done it alone. No one holding me back. No one telling me it was just a hobby. No one making me doubt myself. My phone buzzed. "Tasha. Nathan's been served." His office called my assistant to complain about the embarrassment. "How did your meeting go?" I texted back. "Signed the contract. I'm officially rich. That's my girl. Still on for dinner tonight?" "Definitely." I was about to put my phone away when I saw a familiar car stopped at a red light across the street. Nathan's silver Mercedes. And in the passenger seat, visible through the window, was Camille. Without thinking, I lifted my phone and took a photo. The angle was perfect. Both of them clearly visible, Nathan driving, Camille laughing at something he'd said. Middle of a Wednesday afternoon. Both of them should have been at work. I sent the photo to Tasha. "More evidence. Taken 5 minutes ago." She responded immediately. "Beautiful. They're not even being careful." I watched the car drive away and felt nothing. No jealousy, no hurt. They could have each other. They deserved each other. I spent the afternoon walking through the city. I stopped at an art supply store and bought expensive paper, new pencils, high-quality inks. I stopped at a bookstore and bought 3 novels I'd been wanting to read. I stopped at a cafe and had coffee and cake, sitting by the window watching people pass by. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew I'd just signed a major contract. Nobody knew my life was changing. I was anonymous in the best possible way. Free to be just another person on a Wednesday afternoon. At 6, I met Tasha at an Italian restaurant in her neighborhood. She was already seated when I arrived, with a bottle of wine open on the table. "To freedom," she said, raising her glass. "To freedom." We clinked glasses and drank. "Tell me everything about the meeting," she said. So I did. The contract, the team, the approval rights, the money. She listened with growing delight. "This is exactly what you deserve," she said when I finished. "After years of hiding your success, you're finally getting recognized properly. It feels surreal. It's going to feel more surreal when Nathan realizes what he lost." "Has he responded to the divorce papers?" "His attorney called me this afternoon. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Everything. Property division, spousal support, the works. Nathan seems to think he's entitled to half of your future earnings." I almost choked on my wine. "My future earnings?" "He's claiming that as your husband he provided emotional and practical support that enabled your success. Therefore he deserves a share of all income generated from work created during the marriage." That's insane. That's standard divorce lawyer tactics. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. "But here's the thing." Tasha leaned forward. "We have documentation that he actively discouraged your work. We have your testimony, my testimony, probably emails or texts where he called it a hobby or told you to quit. We can prove he not only didn't support your career, he actively undermined it. So they won't win? Not if I have anything to say about it. But be prepared for this to get ugly. Nathan's pride is hurt. Men like him don't handle rejection well." As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed. "Nathan calling." "Don't answer," Tasha said. "I wasn't planning to." He called again 5 minutes later. Then again. Finally, a text message appeared. "We need to talk about this divorce. You're being unreasonable." I showed the message to Tasha. She rolled her eyes. Classic. "You're being unreasonable for having standards." Should I respond? "Only if you want to. But keep it brief and direct. Don't engage with his accusations." I thought for a moment, then typed, "All communication goes through my attorney." Sent. "Perfect," Tasha said. "Professional, firm, no room for argument." My phone buzzed again almost immediately. "This is my life too. You can't just shut me out." I turned off my phone and put it in my purse. "Better," Tasha said. "Now let's order food and talk about literally anything else." We spent the rest of dinner discussing her cases, my upcoming book release, the animated series, our college memories. Normal things. Good things. Things that had nothing to do with Nathan or divorce or betrayal. When I got home that night, the house felt peaceful. My space. My sanctuary. I went upstairs to my studio and worked on illustrations until midnight. The creative energy flowing through me felt limitless. Each line was confident, each color choice right. This was who I was supposed to be. And nothing was going to stop me now. The following Tuesday, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Brielle?" "It's Patricia. Nathan's mother." I hadn't heard from her in 6 months. "Hello, Patricia. I heard about the divorce." Her voice was cold, disapproving. Of course she'd take his side. "I assumed Nathan would tell you." "He's devastated. Absolutely devastated. He said you just blindsided him with papers, refused to even discuss your problems." I sat down on my couch, preparing for this conversation. "That's not exactly what happened. He said you've been keeping secrets from him for years. That you have some kind of second career he knew nothing about. I've been illustrating children's books professionally for our entire marriage. He knew about it at first, then stopped paying attention. Well, he's been very busy building his career. You can't expect him to track every little hobby. It's not a hobby. It's my profession. I make more money than he does." Silence on the other end of the line. "Then, that's not possible." "It's not only possible, it's true. But that's not why we're getting divorced." "Then why?" "Nathan says you won't even talk to him." "He's having an affair, Patricia? For 7 months at least." More silence. Longer this time. "Nathan wouldn't do that," she finally said, but her voice was uncertain. "He admitted it. I have photos of him with her. My attorney has all the evidence." "Well, men sometimes make mistakes. That doesn't mean you throw away a marriage." I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. Many choices. Every time he lied to me, every time he met her, every time he came home and pretended everything was fine. Marriage is about forgiveness, Brielle. It's about working through difficult times. I'm done working through his difficult times while he disrespects me. You're being very selfish. Think about Nathan's career, his reputation. A divorce will reflect poorly on him. Maybe he should have thought about that before having an affair. I didn't raise my son to be spoken about this way. He's a good man. He's a cheater who told me not to embarrass him at a dinner party where everyone had come specifically to meet me. He's a man who gave me an allowance while I was secretly making hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's someone who made me feel small for 7 years because it made him feel big. Patricia's voice hardened. You always were ungrateful. Nathan gave you everything. A beautiful home, a comfortable life. And this is how you repay him. Goodbye, Patricia. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to her like that before. I'd always been polite, deferential, trying to win her approval. She'd never liked me, had made it clear from the beginning that Nathan could have done better. Now I didn't care what she thought. My phone rang again. Nathan this time. I answered. Maybe it was time to have this conversation. Did you just hang up on my mother? He demanded. She called me to defend your affair. So yes, I hung up on her. You had no right to tell her about Camille. I had every right. She asked why we're getting divorced. I told her the truth. This is between us, Brielle. Not the whole family. You made it the whole family's business when you involved your mother in attacking me. Nobody's attacking you. We're trying to make you see reason. Reason? I almost laughed. What's reasonable about expecting me to stay married to someone who cheated on me? It was a mistake. I was confused. You were so distant, always working on your drawings. Don't you dare blame this on me. I'm not blaming you. I'm explaining. Things haven't been good between us for years. You have to admit that. Things haven't been good because you stopped seeing me as a person. I became furniture to you. Something that was just supposed to be there, not need anything, not want anything. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked me about my day? When's the last time you looked at my work? When's the last time you touched me without expecting something in return? Silence on the line. I want to work this out, he said finally. I made a mistake with Camille. It's over. I ended it. You didn't end it. I caught you. I would have ended it eventually. That doesn't make it better. What do you want from me? You want me to beg? Fine. I'm begging. Don't throw away our marriage over this. I looked around my living room. The house I'd been organizing, reclaiming, making mine. The studio upstairs where I was finally doing my best work. The life I was building without him. I don't love you anymore, I said quietly. The words hung in the air between us. True and final. You don't mean that. I do. I think I stopped loving you a long time ago. I just didn't want to admit it. Brielle? You made me feel invisible, Nathan. For years. And when I finally became visible, when people finally saw my work and valued it, your first instinct was to be embarrassed. Not proud. Not supportive. Embarrassed. That's not how it was. That's exactly how it was. You told me not to embarrass you at that dinner party. The dinner party where everyone wanted to meet me. Where people knew my work, valued my talent, treated me like I mattered. And all you could think about was how it made you look. I was surprised. Shocked. You can't blame me for that. I can blame you for everything that came after. For the affair. For lying. For making me feel like I was crazy, for wanting more than scraps of your attention. What do you want? You want the house. Take it. You want money? I'll pay support. Just don't do this. I want the divorce. That's all I want from you. You're going to regret this. No, I'm really not. Camille and I are done. Completely done. I swear. I don't care. How can you not care? Because even if there had never been a Camille, we'd still be over. She's just the thing that finally made me see what I'd been ignoring. Our marriage died a long time ago. We've just been pretending it was alive. I never pretended. Yes, you did. You pretended I was happy. You pretended I didn't need anything from you. You pretended that a marriage where only one person's dreams matter was actually a partnership. This is because of your books. Because of your success. You think you're too good for me now. There it was. The real accusation under everything else. No, Nathan. I think I'm good enough for myself. That's the difference. This conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. I hung up. This time when he called back, I didn't answer. Tasha texted me an hour later. Nathan's attorney just sent over a response to our petition. They're requesting spousal support, half the house equity, and a share of your future book earnings. Can they get it? Over my dead body. I'm drafting our response now. This is going to be a fight, Brielle. Are you ready? I looked at the contract from Sterling Publishing on my desk. $2 million. My future. My choice. I'm ready. The next 3 months became a blur of legal meetings, document reviews, and depositions. Nathan fought every point, tried to claim every asset, demanded spousal support despite making a substantial salary himself. His attorney argued that my career wouldn't exist without the stability Nathan provided during our marriage. That his income paid for the house where I created my work, the utilities that kept my computer running, the food that kept me alive while I drew. Tasha systematically destroyed every argument. She presented emails where Nathan had told me to quit illustrating and get a real job. Text messages where he'd called my work a waste of time. Testimony from me and others about how he'd actively discouraged my career. She showed that I'd kept my income completely separate, that Nathan had no financial interest in my professional accounts, that he'd never contributed a dollar to my art supplies or business expenses. Most damaging of all, she presented evidence of the affair. Credit card statements showing Nathan had taken Camille to expensive restaurants. Hotel charges. Jewelry purchases. All of it coming from joint accounts, marital money spent on his mistress. The judge was not impressed. In December we had our final hearing. I sat at a table next to Tasha, wearing a blue suit that made me feel strong. Across the room, Nathan sat with his attorney, looking angry and desperate. The judge reviewed all the evidence, asked a few clarifying questions, then delivered her ruling. I find that Mrs. Hayes built her successful career independently, despite rather than because of her husband's involvement. The evidence clearly shows Mr. Hayes not only failed to support his wife's professional endeavors but actively discouraged them. Therefore, he has no claim to her past or future earnings from her illustration work. Nathan's face went red. His attorney put a hand on his arm, silently telling him to stay calm. Regarding the marital home, the judge continued, Mrs. Hayes has demonstrated that she can afford to buy out Mr. Hayes's equity interest. The home will be awarded to Mrs. Hayes, with Mr. Hayes receiving his 50% of the current equity value within 90 days. That was fair. I could pay him and still have plenty left. Regarding spousal support, Mr. Hayes's request is denied. He has a substantial income and the ability to support himself. Mrs. Hayes has shown that she has supported herself independently throughout the marriage and owes no ongoing support to Mr. Hayes. Tasha squeezed my hand under the table. Finally, regarding the affair and the misuse of marital funds, Mr. Hayes will be required to reimburse the marital estate for all documented expenses related to his extramarital relationship. This amounts to approximately $47,000, to be paid within 90 days. Nathan stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. She's taking everything. Mr. Hayes, the judge said coldly, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. His attorney pulled him back into his chair. This court finds the marriage irretrievably broken. The divorce is granted. All terms are effective immediately. Documents will be filed accordingly. The gavel came down. It was over. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Tasha hugged me. You did it. We did it. No, you did it. I just helped. Now go live your life. Nathan walked past us without looking, his attorney talking quietly to him. He looked smaller somehow. Diminished. The man who tried to make me feel small had shrunk himself. I felt no satisfaction in it, just relief that it was finished. That night I went home to my house. My house now, legally and completely. I walked through every room, seeing it with new eyes. This was my space to fill however I wanted. I started planning changes. The master bedroom would become my studio. The smaller bedroom upstairs would be my actual bedroom, cozy and simple. The dining room we never used would become a library. The basement would be a gallery space for my original art. This house would become a home. My home. I worked on the changes slowly over the next month. Painters came and went. Furniture was moved, donated, replaced. I hung my own artwork on every wall. I bought a comfortable chair for reading. I set up my studio with perfect lighting and organization. By January, the house felt completely different. Bright, creative, alive. The animated series based on my books premiered in February. I watched the first episode alone in my living room on my new comfortable couch, and cried at how beautiful it was. They'd captured everything I'd hoped for. The emotion, the heart, the message. Children around the country were watching my characters come to life. Learning the lessons I'd tried to teach about kindness, courage, finding your voice. The reviews were incredible. The ratings were strong. Sterling Publishing called to discuss a second season before the first one had finished airing. My agent negotiated an even better deal. In March, I got an unexpected email. From Theodore Park. Dear Brielle, my wife and I would like to host a small dinner party to celebrate your animated series' success. Nothing as large as the last party you attended. Just a few friends who appreciate your work. Would you be interested? Regards, Theodore. I smiled at the memory of that last dinner party. The night everything had changed. I wrote back, I would be honored. Thank you for thinking of me. The party was on a Saturday evening. I wore a red dress, bold and bright. I felt beautiful. The park estate looked the same as before, elegant and imposing. But this time when I walked through those gates, I walked alone. Head high, confident, knowing exactly who I was and what I'd accomplished. Simone greeted me at the door with a genuine smile. "Brielle, you look wonderful. Come in." The gathering was smaller this time, maybe 15 people. Artists, gallery owners, a few authors I admired. Everyone was kind and welcoming. Theodore raised his glass in a toast. "To Brielle. May your success continue to grow." "To Brielle," everyone echoed. I spent the evening talking about art and creativity and the projects I was planning. People listened. They asked questions. They valued my opinions. Nobody asked about Nathan. Nobody mentioned the divorce. That chapter was closed. This was my life now. This was who I'd become. And it was better than anything I could have imagined. Spring arrived with warm sunshine and cherry blossoms. The city transformed into something softer, more beautiful. I felt myself transforming too. The second season of the animated series was greenlit with an even bigger budget. My publisher wanted to extend my book contract for 10 more titles. Galleries were reaching out about showing my original artwork. Everything was growing, expanding, becoming more than I'd dreamed possible. But the best part wasn't the success. It was the peace. I woke up every morning in my bright bedroom, sunlight streaming through windows I'd decorated with plants. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen. I worked in my studio surrounded by art I loved. Nobody criticized me. Nobody made me feel small. Nobody told me my dreams were silly. In April, I started teaching illustration workshops at a community center in my neighborhood. Saturday mornings, I worked with young girls who wanted to learn to draw. I taught them technique, but mostly I taught them to trust their own vision. "Your art doesn't have to look like anyone else's," I told them. "It just has to be true to you." They listened with serious faces, their pencils moving across paper, creating worlds only they could imagine. One girl named Sophie, maybe 10 years old, stayed after class one week. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. My dad says art isn't a real career. He says I should focus on math and science." I saw myself in her uncertain eyes. "What do you think?" "I think I want to draw. I think about stories all the time. But maybe he's right." I knelt down to her level. I was married to someone who told me the same thing. He said my art was just a hobby, that I should focus on being supportive of his real career. And I believed him for a long time. What changed? I started believing in myself more than I believed in his doubts. And my art became my real career. A very successful one. Sophie considered this. Did he apologize? When he realized he was wrong? No. But I didn't need him to. I just needed to prove it to myself. She smiled then, small but real. "I'm going to keep drawing." "Good. The world needs your stories." After she left, I sat in the empty classroom and felt grateful. For this chance to help others avoid the mistakes I'd made. To teach them young that their voices mattered, their talents were real, their dreams were worth pursuing. My phone rang. "Tasha. Guess what I just heard through the legal gossip network?" "What?" "Nathan got fired." I sat up straighter. "Fired? Why?" Apparently the affair with Camille created a hostile work environment. She was his subordinate and he gave her unfair advantages. Promotions she wasn't qualified for, projects that should have gone to others. When word spread about the affair, several employees complained to HR. The investigation found enough evidence of favoritism and misconduct that they terminated him. Wow. And here's the best part. Camille quit right after he got fired. Apparently she was only interested in him when he had power and could help her career. Now that he's just unemployed Nathan with a bad reputation, she wants nothing to do with him. I should have felt satisfaction. Some vindictive pleasure in his downfall. But mostly I just felt tired. "He made his own choices," I said. "He really did. Anyway, I thought you'd want to know. He's probably going to have trouble finding another executive position with this on his record." After we hung up, I thought about Nathan. About the man I'd married, full of ambition and charm. About how that ambition had twisted into something ugly, how the charm had been a mask for insecurity and selfishness. I wondered if he understood now what he'd lost. Not me necessarily, but the chance to be better. To be someone worth being. Probably not. Men like Nathan rarely saw themselves clearly. But that wasn't my problem anymore. In May, I had my first solo gallery show. Simone Park had offered her gallery space and I'd accepted. We displayed 30 of my original illustrations, large-scale pieces showing the evolution of my work over 7 years. The opening night was crowded. People I knew, people I'd never met, all there to see my art. To appreciate it, critique it, discuss it. I wore a green dress and stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by images I'd created. Proof of every hour I'd worked in secret. Every moment of doubt I'd pushed through. Every time I kept going even when someone told me to stop. Grant Morrison from Sterling Publishing was there. This is exceptional, Brielle. Have you thought about doing an art book? Something that shows your process, your development. I haven't, but I'm interested. Let's set up a meeting. I think there's real potential. Theodore and Simone stood in front of one of my favorite pieces. A girl standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out at an enormous sky, her face showing fear and determination and hope all at once. This one speaks to me, Theodore said. The way you've captured that moment of decision. When you know you have to jump but you're terrified. That's exactly what it is, I said. I'd like to purchase it. For my personal collection. I'd be honored. As the evening went on, I sold 8 pieces. Gallery sales, meaningful money, but more than that, validation. People wanted my art in their homes. They wanted to live with images I'd created. Near the end of the night, a young woman approached me nervously. Miss Sterling? I'm Rebecca. I'm a student at the Art Institute. Your work inspired me to focus on children's book illustration. That's wonderful. I was wondering if you had any advice. For someone just starting out. I thought about what I would tell my younger self. What I wished someone had told me. Don't hide your work, I said. Don't make yourself small to make others comfortable. Create what matters to you and trust that it will find the people who need it. She nodded seriously, writing it down in a small notebook. And one more thing, I added. Don't let anyone convince you that commercial art is less valuable than fine art. Stories matter. Especially stories for children. You're not just making pretty pictures. You're teaching, inspiring, showing kids who they could become. Thank you, she said, her eyes bright. That means everything. After everyone left, I stood alone in the gallery, looking at the red dots next to sold pieces. Simone came to stand beside me. You should be proud, she said. I am. I heard about your divorce. I hope I'm not overstepping to say I think you're better off. I think so too. That night at our dinner party, when Theodore said Nathan didn't know about your work, I saw something click in your eyes. Like you suddenly saw clearly. I did. I saw that I'd been hiding the best parts of myself from someone who wouldn't have appreciated them anyway. Well, the world appreciates them. This show proves it. I went home that night feeling full. Not from the sales or the compliments, though those were nice. But from the realization that I'd done it. I built this life. I'd become this person. And I'd done it by myself, for myself. That was the real achievement. June brought unexpected news. I got a call from my agent, sounding excited. Brielle, you're not going to believe this. The animation has been nominated for 3 Emmy Awards. What? Outstanding Children's Program, Outstanding Writing, and Outstanding Main Title Design. The ceremony is in September. I sat down heavily on my couch. An Emmy nomination. For work based on my books, my characters, my vision. This is incredible. It really is. Sterling Publishing wants to use this as a marketing opportunity. They're planning a whole press campaign. Are you comfortable with that? Yes. Absolutely yes. For years I'd hidden. Now I was ready to be seen. The press campaign started in July. Interviews in major magazines. Features on entertainment websites. A profile in the New York Times art section with photos in my studio. I talked honestly about my journey. About creating art in secret. About the marriage that had made me feel invisible. About finding myself after divorce. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages from women who related to my story. Who'd made themselves small for partners who didn't appreciate them. Who were finding their own courage to pursue their dreams. I became accidentally famous. Not celebrity famous, but known. Recognized. When I went to the grocery store, someone might say, "You're Brielle Sterling. I love your work." It was strange and wonderful and sometimes overwhelming. In August, I got a message through my website contact form. From Camille. Dear Brielle, I know you have no reason to read this, much less respond. But I wanted to apologize. I knew Nathan was married. I convinced myself it didn't matter, that if he was willing to cheat, the marriage must be over anyway. I was wrong. I was selfish and cruel. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. You deserve better than what both of us put you through. Camille. I read it 3 times. Trying to decide if it was genuine or just an attempt to clear her conscience. Ultimately, it didn't matter. Her apology didn't change anything. Didn't undo the hurt or the betrayal. It was just words too late from someone who'd made choices and now had to live with them. I deleted the message without responding. Some things didn't deserve my energy. I heard through Tasha that Nathan was still unemployed. He'd applied to several executive positions but kept getting rejected. Word had spread in his industry about the circumstances of his firing. Nobody wanted to hire someone with ethics violations on their record. He'd moved into a small apartment, sold his expensive car, cut way back on his lifestyle. The divorce settlement had taken most of his savings. He was paying me for his equity in the house. He'd had to reimburse the marital estate for money spent on Camille. He'd lost his job and his reputation. Everything he'd valued gone. I tried to feel sympathy but couldn't quite manage it. He'd made every choice that led to this moment. The affair, the lies, the years of dismissing me. These were consequences, not injustice. Meanwhile, my life kept expanding. The Emmy ceremony in September was glamorous and exciting. I wore a blue gown and sat in the audience with the Sterling Publishing team and the animation producers. We didn't win Outstanding Children's Program, but we won Outstanding Main Title Design. I got to stand on stage while they accepted the award and mention my books as the inspiration. The applause was thunderous. People standing, cheering, celebrating work that had started in my small studio while I was married to someone who called it a hobby. After the ceremony, at the after party, Grant Morrison found me. So, about that art book we discussed. I'm interested. Let's make it happen. I'm thinking a coffee table book. Your artwork, your thoughts on the creative process, maybe some personal stories about your journey. I like that idea. We could have it ready for next fall. Time it with the third season of the show. My life had become a series of projects, opportunities, possibilities, each one building on the last. Each one proof that I'd been right to believe in myself. In October, Sophie from my illustration class won a young artists competition. She'd submitted a series of drawings about a girl who loved math and science but also loved to paint. The judges had called it sophisticated and emotionally authentic. She brought her trophy to class, beaming with pride. I won. I see that. Congratulations. My dad came to the award ceremony. He saw my drawings displayed. He told me afterward that maybe art could be a real career after all. I hugged her. That's wonderful. Thank you for teaching me. For believing in me. You did the work. You believed in yourself. That's what mattered. After class, I sat in the empty room and thought about how many Sophies were out there. How many young girls were being told their art wasn't valuable, their dreams weren't practical, their voices didn't matter. And I thought about how many women like me had made themselves small, hidden their talents, dimmed their light to make someone else feel brighter. Not anymore. Not if I could help it. I started a scholarship fund. Money for young women pursuing careers in illustration and animation. I worked with the community center to expand the art program. I spoke at schools about finding your voice. My success wasn't just mine anymore. It was a platform. A way to lift others up. That felt better than any award or contract or gallery show. In November, I got a text from an unknown number. Brielle, it's Nathan. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong about your art, about you, about what matters. I threw away something valuable because I was too proud to see it. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed you to know. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. 7 years together. 1 year apart. And now an apology that came too late to change anything. I thought about responding. Telling him I accepted his apology. Offering some kind of closure. But what would be the point? This wasn't about him anymore. It was never really about him. It was about me learning to value myself. Learning that I didn't need anyone's permission to be who I was. Learning that making myself small didn't keep the peace, it just kept me invisible. I blocked the number. Then I went upstairs to my studio and worked on illustrations for my next book. A story about a girl who discovers she can fly, but only when she stops trying to make herself weigh less. The metaphor was obvious but true. Sometimes the most obvious truths are the ones we need most. 1 year after the divorce, I stood in Simone's gallery at an opening reception for my second solo show. The space was packed with people. Collectors, artists, fans of my books, journalists covering the event. I wore a red dress that made me feel powerful. My hair was styled elegantly. I held a glass of champagne and felt completely comfortable in my own skin. Theodore Park stood in front of my newest piece. A large painting of a woman standing in an open field, her arms raised to the sky, colors swirling around her like she was creating them from nothing. "This is your best work yet," he said when I joined him. Thank you. It's how I feel these days. Free. More than that. Like I'm finally the person I was supposed to be all along. That's what art should do. Reveal truth. Simone appeared with another glass of champagne for me. Brielle, there's someone I'd like you to meet. This is Daniel Chen. He's a documentary filmmaker. He's interested in doing a piece about children's book illustrators. A tall man with kind eyes and an easy smile extended his hand. It's an honor to meet you. Your work is remarkable. Thank you. We talked about his documentary project, about my process, about the message I tried to convey through my illustrations. He was intelligent and genuinely interested. Not in me as a potential romantic partner, just in my work, my perspective. Was refreshing. Would you be willing to participate? He asked. We'd film you working, talking about your creative philosophy. I'd be honored. As he walked away to look at other pieces, Tasha appeared at my elbow. He's handsome. He's professional. He's also not wearing a wedding ring. I'm not looking for anything romantic right now. I know, but you could be. Eventually. When you're ready. Maybe. Someday. But not because I need someone. Just because I want to share this life with someone who actually sees me. That's the right approach. I looked around the gallery at my artwork displayed on clean white walls. At people appreciating it, discussing it, connecting with it. This was everything I'd worked for. Not the sales or the recognition, though those were wonderful. But the ability to create freely, to share honestly, to exist without apologizing for taking up space. My phone buzzed with a text from my agent. New York Times bestseller list just posted. Your latest book is number 3. Number 3. On the actual New York Times bestseller list. I showed the text to Tasha. She screamed and hugged me, champagne sloshing in our glasses. You did it, she said. Everything you worked for. Everything you dreamed about. You did it. We did it. You helped me get free. No. I just helped you see you were already free. You just hadn't realized it yet. Later that evening, after most of the guests had left, I stood alone in the gallery. Simone had given me a few minutes of quiet before closing up. I walked slowly past each piece, remembering when I'd created them. The late nights in my studio. The moments of frustration and breakthrough. The gradual discovery of my own voice, my own style, my own truth. Each piece was a record of my journey. From hidden and small to visible and whole. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Brielle? This is Patricia Hayes. I tensed automatically. Nathan's mother, who I hadn't spoken to since that awful phone call. Patricia. I'm calling to apologize. I heard about your success. The Emmy, the bestseller lists, all of it. I was wrong about you. Nathan was wrong about you. You're exactly who you said you were. Thank you for saying that. Nathan is struggling, as you probably know. He lost his job, his reputation. He's working in middle management now at a much smaller company. Camille left him. He's alone. I waited for her to ask me to help him. To give him another chance. To be the bigger person. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for him, she continued, surprising me. I'm telling you because I want you to know you made the right choice. He wasn't worthy of you. He never was. I see that now. I appreciate you saying that. You're going to do remarkable things with your life. You already have. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. After we hung up, I stood in the quiet gallery and let myself feel it. Vindication maybe. Or just peace. I'd been right about myself. About my worth, my talent, my dreams. And everyone who doubted me, including Nathan, including Patricia, including sometimes myself, had been wrong. That was enough. I went home that night to my beautiful house. My studio with perfect light. My comfortable bedroom. My space filled with my art and my dreams and my life. I made tea and sat in my reading chair with a new novel. Outside, the city sparkled with lights. Inside, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Alone but not lonely. Successful but not satisfied. Always growing, changing, reaching for the next challenge. This was my happy ending. Not a prince or a reconciliation or a perfect romance. Just me, whole and free, creating the life I'd always wanted. The next morning, I woke up early and went to my studio. I had a new book to illustrate. A story about a girl who learns that the bravest thing you can do is be exactly who you are, no matter who tells you to be less. I picked up my pencil and started drawing. Outside, the sun rose over the city. A new day, a new story, a new chapter of my life. And I couldn't wait to see what came next.